Welcome to the first ever video episode of the Mind Body Spirit podcast, where I interviewed my client, Melissa, on her journey so far. It's just a complete transformation, and she's learned a lot, and I think she shares a ton of just gold nuggets that if you are going through a physical transformation as well, or you're trying to lose body fat, trying to get stronger, then you're going to want to listen to this conversation and learn for someone who's going through it and doing it really, really well. Enjoy. What would be a win to kind of kick us off? What's something that's going well right now?
I keep hitting PRs. I squatted 275s on leg day, and even today, we were doing walking lunges, and I was using 230s, and we did deadlifts, and I did 240s. Like even in the cut, I'm still able to, you know, lift heavy and go for it.
Yeah, which I mean, that's awesome. And anyone who listens to this who doesn't know what PR stands for, it stands for like personal record.
Personal record. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's funny is like I think one of the things we talked about when we said we're moving you into a cut, we're putting you into a deficit, you're gonna have less fuel, so performance should come down. But you're just has been the opposite almost, or you just kept winning through it on performance and too, which is pretty cool. That's that we'll take it, right? We'll take it.
Exactly. We'll take it. Yeah. Now, granted, at the end of the workout, I am spent, but I definitely can find the gas in the tank to get through.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And so I guess hearing that and hearing where you're at now, I guess what has changed in the last like 6 months, when we started working together?
I'm sorry to be laughing. It's just there's so much. Um, I think just from the beginning, being in a different mindset place, I was looking for a change. I was kind of stuck where I was and then got injured. So I was just coming from this feeling of square one and needing to embrace something different. So just mindset, and even like starting in the beginning, where I was starting with you at overtraining, under eating, and you basically telling me we're going to flip everything on its head and you just have to like be patient with the process. So, to be able to be open to do that and have the mindset to be patient was like a huge change from the past 6 months for sure.
Yeah, and to put like perspective behind, you said under eating and overtraining. You were eating 1,400 calories a day.
Yeah.
And that was your maintenance. You were not seeing weight loss on that.
Nope.
And you were working out how many days a week?
Probably like 6. I would give myself like one day off, and it was a mix of cardio and weight training, but the cardio was going super hard, and like, just I always came from the mindset of more is more, and that's what I thought I needed to do, and just was continuously spinning my wheels and not being able to figure out why I wasn't losing weight, gaining muscle. Like I was just stuck in this spot.
Yeah, and essentially, I understand, it makes sense to you now what I'm going to say, but like your body was just under so much stress on every level.
Yep.
From a physical standpoint, 6 days in the gym, and just like you're in a cut right now, and you're hitting PRs. That kind of goes to your personality and the way you train. You put 110% into what you're doing. So you were doing that 6 days a week. That is a lot. That is a lot of energy. And then on top of that, you were eating 1,400 calories a day, which maybe someone hearing this is like, that doesn't seem too crazy, but like to put that in perspective, how much were you eating before we started your cut?
20, like 2,000 to 2,400, depending on the day.
Right. So that's your maintenance now, 1,000 calories higher than it was. And so in your cut, where you are now losing weight on command, we have you eating 16 to 1,800 calories, right? So you were eating 1,400. That's way lower than your cut is even right now. And you're training way more, or you were training way more back then when you first came to like the program than you are now.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's wild. Yeah. I mean, and we've talked about it before too. You telling me that you were going to work me up to eating over 2,000 calories and me literally laughing at you like, yeah, that's not going to happen. I have no idea how that's going to happen. And but I appreciate with the way that you work with your people is that like you met me where I was and then just kind of incrementally moved it forward. So it wasn't like eat 2,000 calories tomorrow. It's like, okay, add this and do that. Like the way it was broken down, that once I hit that, I was like, oh, this wasn't so bad at all. And my body is responding positively. Like it's actually being fueled the way it needs to for the way that I work out.
Right. Yeah. I guess, was this process easy when I like flipped the script on you and you decided like, all right, we're going to work out less than 6 days a week. We're going to eat more than 1,400 calories a day. Was it like, thank God I get to work out less. I get to eat more. How did you kind of feel it was for you?
I mean, if I'm being honest, it was tough in the beginning because it basically was undoing everything that I had done up until that point. And I think I was coming from a place of, okay, I need something different to be successful, but it was hard. Like when you're like, you're not going to do cardio. And I'm like, but I love cardio, Jordan. And you're like, but it'll benefit you in the long run. And to be able to like trust that and not revert back to bad habits because we're all kind of creatures of doing the same routine. So it was basically taking it and turning it upside down. So it was hard in the beginning. And then as I saw the positive changes, as I started to feel better and sleep better, and then I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't have to kill it every single day. Like I can listen to my body. Cause I think, in all honesty, that was something else I wasn't very good at doing, but I didn't know I wasn't good at doing it. So I would be tired and be like, oh, I can suck it up and get through the next workout instead of being like, I need to rest. And that's fine. Like, you're allowed to take more than
Yeah.
one rest day a week. Like, it was such a transformation with that too, and just actually listening to what my body was telling me.
Yeah. How many rest days do you take nowadays, like per week?
I mean, it's like 2 to 3. It just depends. Like, even like I'll have certain things planned and allowing myself grace to be like, you know what? I didn't sleep as well. I didn't, fuel as well. So today is going to be a rest day. And like when I say rest day, I'm not like sitting on the couch, like, watching TV. It's okay. I'm going to pull back on like the typical workouts and go for a walk or, do one of the trigger sessions that you've worked with me on and different things like that. So it's still having some movement and recovery, but not going 120%. It's like maybe going 70.
Yeah. So it's introducing activity that is restorative, right?
Yes,
So still being active.
100%.
It's not like you decide like, all right, I'm gonna be sedentary today because it's rest
Yeah,
day.
right.
It's not sedentary day, but yeah, you get to do a different form of activity that's actually going to make you feel better rather than make you sore. The whole other thing too, like if you can think back to when we first started or before you started working with me, how is your soreness then versus how is your soreness now on a regular basis?
I think back before we started, working intensively together, that I would have days where it would be like sore for a couple, and pretty sore, or I'd be fine that day, and it would be like that second day, so I'd wait for it, like, oh, I know I'm going to be sore here soon, and now it's so much less and so much more manageable, and you can just continue through it because like soreness isn't really a huge indicator of how well you did a workout. It's just your body like responding. So if you can recover it well, it doesn't really impact me anymore. And I mean, I think it is like when we first started working together too, I was overcoming my injury, like from breaking my ankle. So, just really being mindful of that and not wanting to put myself in a place where I was taking steps back when I really was just trying to take things forward.
Hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I know we've talked about this before, but the injury was almost a blessing in disguise with
Yeah.
giving you the patience to actually take that step back to take huge leaps forward.
Yep.
I guess what's the mindset behind that? Why do you think it took the injury, or how was the injury a blessing, I guess?
I think it forced me to it forced me to stop. I mean, I was sidelined um for like in a walking boot for 8 weeks and then in a brace, and I think I got the all clear like the month before we started working together, so like September-ish. So
Mhm.
it really forced me to just stop and reset and be like, okay, even though my injury wasn't a result of like the workouts and things, like, do I want to continue on that path? And to be like, you know what, I'm looking for something different. I need something different. And just to kind of embrace, it was like you were like plunked in at the like right time. So, and just being able to like work through that too. So it put me in a mindset in order to change. And that's what the biggest blessing was.
Awesome. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
figuring out, yeah, I need a different way to look at this.
Yep.
And then I guess going through it all, this is something that I know we've laughed about before. I mean, how long did it take you to reverse your metabolism, right? Because your metabolism was at 1,400 calories for a very long time. And then now, you're talking about eating 2,400 calories and maintaining your weight with that. It's like, that's someone's probably dream hearing this podcast. Yeah. They're gonna be like, wow, right. What's the secret to be able to eat 1,000 calories more and not gain weight?
Yep.
What is the secret to doing that?
Patience. I think you have to be patient with the process. And I think just being transparent with you too and talking through it. And, like I said before, you broke it down into manageable pieces. So it's like it took, and you were like, listen, these first few months, we're not going to be focused on fat loss. Like this is, having like discovering where you're at, having this priming phase. And I think that was about 5 months of it. Mm-hmm. And just being patient and, actually tracking and really being mindful of what was the input, I think also just really helped me get to that point.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't lose any weight for 5 months, right? But nope. we saw you get stronger. We saw you feel so much better. Your clothes changed a little bit, like how they fit, right? You were getting smaller. You were getting more compliments.
Yep.
And you were like, haven't lost any weight yet. Eating more, which is a great win as well, which makes, I think maintenance probably makes a lot more sense now, right? Like how do you maintain results?
Yeah.
Because I think so many people fall in the trap of dieting down until they hit this low number and they think, now I have to maintain this.
Yeah.
Which is where you kind of came from, where you started at, right?
Yeah.
How is that? Sure. How has that changed for you? How's your idea of maintenance changed for you?
Well, I think actually just knowing what maintenance is. Like I was always able to lose the weight, but didn't know what to do once I got to where I wanted to be. It was like, okay, do I just keep eating at this low calorie forever? Because I guess that's what got me here. So to understand that it's not that, because you do that for so long and then your metabolism's all wonky and then you just slowly start to gain the weight back again. So to be able to like understand what maintenance is and to know like once you hit where you would like to be or your goal, that you just can go back up to maintenance and be able to maintain that weight. It's pretty awesome. And I think we've talked about it too. It takes the mystery out of it, in all honesty. I think so many people go into diets or the diet industry in general. It's just like you constantly are spinning your wheels trying to figure it out. And once you figure it out, you realize it's not that bad and it's not that hard. So, and to be in a place where you're adequately fueled at 2,000 calories or 2,300 calories, like, and to be able to have that overall benefit of your health, I think just far exceeds anything about like eating super less than, because eventually you don't have anywhere to pull from either.
Yeah, you get, I think too often people who do Weight Watchers or anything like that, how they get results is telling you to eat as little as possible for as long as you can sustain that, and you lose weight, of course. Hopefully, if you don't lose weight doing that, then you've probably done that too many times. And that's exactly where people end up, is they end up in a place where like, okay, Weight Watchers used to work for me. It worked for me 5 other times, but the 6th time, for some reason, I did it and literally nothing's happening.
Yep.
Like, and when you get to that point, it's like, all right, we're going to spend months reversing that, all that, essentially adaptation, like metabolic adaptation is a normal thing. Like, it's not like I think sometimes on the internet, we hear words that are scary, like metabolic damage or anything like that.
Right.
Like, it's not damage.
It's just, not that bad.
Yeah. It's just your body has gotten really used to being efficient with the resources. Like, it's like if you had to pay all your bills on, $500 a month or something, like, you would cut down the non-necessities for sure.
Right.
Right.
For sure. Yeah, you would figure it out, and then you would
Yeah,
just stay there. Yeah, you wouldn't go
exactly.
either way. Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe you don't have electricity anymore.
Right.
It's like, and, and that would suck, right? But you get used to it. And
You get
essentially
to
that's what
adjust it.
happens with our bodies. It's like you don't have energy anymore because you're
Yep.
really low energy because you're only eating 1,400 calories. But you can survive, right? And it's like one of those things where you don't realize what you're missing until you actually get that influx of calories and your body starts running on all cylinders again.
Yep. That's exactly where I was at. And I mean, I was like working out 6 days a week, manning my family. Like I'm a mom of 3. Like it's just, and I had no idea. And we've talked about it too. It's like I would hit that 3 o'clock slump or like crash out really hard or like crave desserts and things. And it was because my body was telling me I need more food. And I was just like, oh, I'm just really tired. Like I had no like understanding of it. And now I do. And it's just such a nicer place to to exist.
Yeah, I mean, and even that's something that we haven't talked about yet is the cravings. That's one of the first things we tried to get rid of, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Cravings shouldn't be normal. You know,
Right.
I guess when did you realize that like cravings shouldn't be normal, or how did you realize that?
I mean, truthfully, it probably was like within the first 2 months of us working together, because I was adequately feeding myself at, 2,000, 2,100 calories. And I was like, oh, I don't want dessert all the time like I used to. And it like a light bulb moment went off like, oh, that's probably because I'm feeding myself adequately now. So it didn't take very long for those to like dissipate. And like even now it's just like an active choice, or it's like, no, I don't really need, like I don't need it like I used to. It's funny how
Yeah,
it shifts. Yeah, because you're like your body's just humming along happily. It doesn't need like the extra, the
yeah,
highly palatable foods and stuff
yeah.
too.
When you're starving, anything tastes good, but of course,
Right.
like, of course, dessert's gonna be.
Yeah. So,
No, that's awesome. And that's
mhm.
something that I think a lot of people, especially if you've never fueled yourself adequately, consistently with whole foods and exercised in combination long enough to really get the benefits and experience what you just talked about, it could be like a foreign concept of like, why are you not having dessert? Like how, like, like,
How can you
wow,
not?
I wish
Yeah.
I had that discipline to be like, it's like, it's not discipline. It's just
It's not.
like, you don't need it all the time when your body actually gets what it needs.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I never eat it at all. Like we've
Yeah.
talked about, it's, my girl's birthday was the other day. So having that piece of cake and that's fine, but not like needing a piece of cake 3 days later because it's sitting there. Like you just, it's such a different like mindset too.
Hmm.
But I think also being able to be transparent with you and kind of talk about timing and different things like that. Like we've done some diet breaks as well, that all of those things working together just make it, I mean, I want to say like easy.
Yeah, patience is the hardest part of this whole thing, probably, right? Like the actual
100%.
process
Yeah.
itself is not hard in the sense that like you've definitely done things way harder. You've pushed yourself in the gym harder, more consistently. It
Yep.
just didn't give you the results that you had hoped it would. You've definitely been more strict with your nutrition, and it just didn't give you the results that you hoped it would, right? And
Yeah.
so it's being able to pull back and be like, all right, actually, what is it that I need to do? And when you realize it, you're like, wow, okay, this is how people can be really fit and maintain it. It's because it's actually something that doesn't suck.
Exactly. And like when you let go like the vice grip, it's like you want to control it all so tightly. And like, a lot of people when they're working toward these results, and when you actually can take the step back and let go just a little bit, it's so much easier and you see the results tenfold. Like, we've talked about too, like I just started my cut in April and the results from then to now have been awesome, but it's also putting in perspective that it took like those 5 months to be patient and reset things before diving into a fat loss phase.
Yeah. And I mean, at this point, I haven't checked your most recent weigh in, but I think last time I checked, you were down 12 pounds, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that is pretty fantastic. And, you've been losing consistently. Like we've been calling your shots like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We're going to lose this much in a month. And like, it's happening. Right.
Just
And
like
just
that. Yep.
consistently. And it's because we've done the work of, we know your maintenance. We have so much clarity about your metabolism, so much clarity about, hey, what are the life obstacles or trips or whatever that's happening.
Yeah.
And we just put a game plan in place and we know the outcome before it happens. And then you execute and it happens. And you're like, yep, cool.
There it is. Yep, exactly. And that, I think it's, fair to let people know too, this is through like life. This is through vacations. This is through like my house being remodeled, different things were happening. And it was just tapping into the numbers and working with you, like working together to get enough data to understand like what needed, pulled or changed or whatever. So it's not like everything else in my life paused for me to focus on this goal. It's making it fit in so it's sustainable. Because
Yeah.
that's the ultimate thing. Like, I want this to be a sustainable change. Like so many people throw around the word lifestyle, but I don't think they totally understand what that means. So
Yeah, I think lifestyle is almost like, I don't know. I've seen people, say on the internet and other places too, even in conversations I have with people, I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Cool. And they'll tell me like, I'm doing keto and I'm making it a lifestyle. Like I'm doing it the right way. And it's like, but
right.
you're doing keto. I don't know how that's a lifestyle. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool. Like, do you not like, bread or desserts or anything? We're like, well, actually, no, I'm Italian and my family eats pasta every night, but I don't because it's
Because
like, well, how is that a lifestyle? That's
right.
certain.
Like how is it sustainable? And I
Yeah.
mean, I do give like it's just eventually I feel like either your health plateaus or your mentality stops because like it just so many people want to put so much discipline on themselves and it doesn't like that's one of the main things I've learned from you too. It doesn't have to be that way. Like I'm living life, enjoying life, but still having, the ability to be in this cut because of having the understanding of how the numbers work now and
Yeah.
not and I think, I think people don't like to give themselves grace either. So and we've talked about this too, how I had such an all or nothing mentality before, like, oh, I didn't do 5 workouts this week. Oh, I messed up. Like it's not that way. It's like just giving yourself the grace to like take the rest days or regroup or whatever.
Yeah. And I think when people are going to hear this and they're going to think the numbers scare people a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
How has that changed for you?
I think honestly now I've taken the value out of them. And what I mean by that is it's like the scale is just a tool. It's just a tool to like see your progress. It's not if I'm this weight, I'm a certain way. If it's this weight, I'm a certain way. Like so many people just want to put so much value in themselves.
Thank you for listening to the Mind Body Spirit podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, you gleaned some
over that number. I think all of that has dissipated since embracing this new, like this way of learning. And also too, like the more data you have, the more that you're able to make those little minute changes that you need. Whereas if you're not collecting any data, then you don't know where you're going. You're just kind of spinning your wheels. And the same with like weights and stuff too. If you don't jot down like where you were, you won't know like lifting and stuff. If you don't jot those down, you don't know where you're going. So then it's like, well, I'm lifting fives forever, but that's not going to build you, if you don't progress forward. So, and also like taking measurements and everything too. All of those things, like the measurements is what changed in the beginning when I was repairing my metabolism. If I would have never taken those down, I wouldn't have known. And there would have been there was so much celebrating to be missed or so many wins to be like, oh, I've lost 3 inches here and an inch here, and I haven't lost any poundage at all. Like, so I think people are afraid of them, but if you can actually take them for what they are as just data points, then you can really use them to move forward and help.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's a big thing. It's like we would just want clarity. Like,
Yeah.
What are we doing? What's changing? Cool. And like you said, when you have a lot of clarity, it's really easy to know what levers to pull or what small changes to make that make the big difference. And I think that's where people get caught up in trying to, like, they're like, I want the results yesterday, so I'm going to make big changes because that's what I need, right? And
Yep.
yeah, and it doesn't really work that way unless you're just never done any type of cutting before in your life, or dieting and before in your life, in which case, sure, you can lose a lot of weight fast, but you'll probably gain it back. And then you fall in that trap, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to get great results, and if you see, like, you've talked to anyone who does get great results, they're always talking about, again, like you just mentioned, the small changes, like taking a lot of, essentially, like, what's the smallest change you can make right now to create the biggest impact, focus on doing that, and then you win, and you can still enjoy life. It's not going to take over your life. It's not like a whole lot of energy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think people a lot of times too they don't recognize the small wins. They just want to jump to those big, like, huge things. And I'm not saying those don't deserve to be celebrated either, but it's like, it's the little drops in the bucket. It's the little steps forward. It's the little wins that keep you going, that keep you sustained, that keep you excited about the process. Because I mean, I'm not saying it was easy. Like, there were, I think people want to do things the right way, but also, like, having transparency with you really helps through this process too, to be like, okay, here's my mindset today. Like, thankfully, I'm not the type of person that stays there very long, but still, there were moments where it was like, okay, I need to, like, take my focus off of this and, remember where I've come from. And that's what helped keep me going too.
Yeah, and there's a couple times you've texted me, and you're like, I feel frustrated because of this reason, and we talked about it, and you're like, oh, I guess that is, like, I forgot about that, right? And you're like, oh yeah, I am eating 1,000 calories more. Oh yeah, I am. Like,
Yeah. Like, all right, thanks for knocking me back into perspective, Jordan.
yeah. And you're like, oh yeah, I did lose 1 pound. Like, we did a mini cut, right? I think that was the first time.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes, again, like, we want fat loss to be fast. The thing is, fat loss is not fast. Anyone tells you it is fast, they're like, muscle loss is fast if you want it to be.
Right.
But yeah, fat loss is not. And so we did a mini cut, 2 weeks, just to see how your metabolism would respond. It responded well, right?
Yep.
But I think mentally it can really play with your mind when you're like, but I thought something else would happen.
Yep. I agree. It was and it did. And you're like, it responded the way it was supposed to. And I'm like, oh, okay. And that's something I've had to tell myself through this whole process, because again, like, this diet culture just feeds that everything's going to happen with, like, a snap of your fingers. And, like, if you want fat loss that will stay fat loss and not tap into muscle, it's slow. Like, so I keep telling myself, like, slow is sustainable. Like, that's the little, like, saying I have to remind myself, like, this is a process. It takes time. It's like, you can't just wake up and, it's done, because it, like you said, like we've talked about so many times too, it's like, if you do it fast, most of the time it's muscle, and then you're either gaining it back as fat and you're worse off than what you were when you started. So, it's just, I think honestly, the patience part has been so big through this whole thing.
Yeah. What do you think has been giving you the ability to be patient?
I think just being able to be transparent with you, and like you said, like, you can kind of remind me of those wins if I'm forgetting them, but also just, I was so stuck that I understood that I needed to do something different to change. Like, a lot of people want to keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So I was like, okay, and I'm a committed person, as you know. So I was like, I'm in this, I'm in it 100%, and I'm going to just embrace the process and be patient.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's where, again, the quicker we can get, I guess, into that mindset switch, the better, right? Because it's, you can keep, like you said, doing the same things over and over again and expect a different result, but it's not really how life works, with anything. Yeah. And so why do we think it would be different when it comes to weight loss or fitness and nutrition, right?
Yeah.
And I guess marketing is very convincing, when it comes to, Weight Watchers and Optivia and all this stuff out there.
Yeah.
It's easy to want to buy a magic pill, the one solution that was going to solve all our problems, and not want to actually do all the mindset shifts and changes that you've made. But I pretty much know 100%, like, are you happy that you made those changes?
Yeah. 100%.
extremely happy.
Yeah.
And that's the great place is you actually get freedom,
Yes.
essentially at this point, and I know you can see like the light at the end of the tunnel. Essentially, that like if you were happy right now, you could go back to maintenance, you could eat, 2,000 plus calories a day, do your workouts and live life and actually work out less than you were working out before and maintain all your results and get stronger.
Yep.
Right. Yep. Which is fantastic. So it's one of those things where I think so many people when they end a diet, they're like, cool, I lost this, this poundage, whatever it might be. And they're excited. And in the back of their mind, they're like, but I don't know if I can keep this going much longer. Right. It's
Yep.
like, what do I do next?
How do I do? Yeah. What do I do?
And it's almost like a gamble. Like, okay, like hopefully like it just stays off. And it's like,
right.
That's not how it works.
It is not. It is not. And I think being able to partner with somebody else too and just have like the coaching and the accountability, because sometimes you're kind of floating around by yourself and you're like, okay, I don't even know where to start. So I think, people being open to the idea of coaching and having someone to kind of bounce ideas off of and be transparent with, it is an interesting like dynamic of a relationship, but if you can embrace that too, it really helps you get where you want to go. It's just like, if you're trying to, you know, learn a new skill, you find somebody that has that skill and they teach you. It's the same thing here. It's like you want to learn the most sustainable way to like have fat loss and strength and everything. You find the person that's like able to do that, and then you just embrace the process.
Just learn what you learn how to do it
and learn what they and it's so much more freedom than I ever thought like could be, and living life and still gaining muscle, and I'm the strongest I've ever been, like hands down.
Yeah. And then one thing I think we haven't talked about yet as we kind of get to the end of this podcast is I've said it a couple times, but I think specifically you're in a cut and you got something from New York, right? During your cut.
I did.
Tell us about that story real quick.
So my nephew competes in gymnastics, and my family was in New York City, and my parents brought me home tiramisu from New York. And before, if I was in some kind of thing, I would have been like, oh, I can't take that. And I'm like, they took the time to transport this from New York to Pennsylvania for me. Even though I'm in a cut, I can make it work into my numbers and still enjoy it with no guilt. Like it's, I think that was something else too, not to get off track, but I've removed all the whole, like, I was good today, I was bad today, it's a bad food, it's a good food. Like I enjoyed that piece of tiramisu, and then, that was it. Like it wasn't anything else that day or the next day. Like it just was part of my cut that day.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And
yeah,
like essentially, and I think we saw the scale move down the way we thought it would. And you're like, cool. Like I ate tiramisu and I lost a pound. It was like one of those things where it's like, awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. Like carry on. Like I went on vacation twice and still maintained results and still lost. Like it doesn't have to be this be all end all either, which I think is really refreshing to people when they actually understand and embrace it.
Yeah. And I think the strategy we have you working on, essentially, it allows you to really enjoy those vacations too.
Yeah. Yeah. And being able to like reverse engineer it too with something that I didn't really think about before. Like, okay, I have this trip, let's work backwards and, figure out when the cut is, when the diet breaks are and everything. And it's all just timed out really, really well. So again, like just having a different way to approach it instead of this whole, I have to be perfect all the time, makes it so much easier to achieve results.
Oh, 100%. And it's the way that our body wants to work too. Like if you're perfect all the time, you're going to adapt to, being in a cut all the time, because that's what your body's, that's the message it's getting. It's like, all right, cool. This is their budget,
Yep. This is where we're living. Yep. Exactly.
Thank you for listening to the Mind, Body, Spirit podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, you gleaned some useful information from it, I would just ask that you leave a comment or a review wherever you listen to your podcast, whether you're watching it on YouTube or listening on Spotify or any other platform, and that you would honestly just share this episode with any friends or family who are going through their own fitness journey or who might be struggling or need some motivation.